The first time Karen stepped into my general store, she carried herself like she was entering a courtroom, where she was both the prosecutor and the judge. I dealt with her type before, loud, self-righteous, with that sense of entitlement that seemed stitched into every word they spoke. But this time felt different. Maybe it was the way she scanned the shelves with narrowed eyes, or the way her lips curled when she saw the line at the counter. She strutted up to me, holding a packet of sugar like it was Exhibit A in some grand trial. "This is unacceptable," she declared, loud enough for half the store to turn their heads. "You're charging more than the official rate. You think people don't notice? You're ripping off this community." I forced a polite smile. "Ma'am, all prices are according to the latest supplier rates. The list is right there by the counter. You can check it yourself." Her eyes darted to the laminated rate list taped near the register, but instead of conceding, she snorted. "That's your list, not the government's. You people always make your own rules. My HOA wouldn't allow this nonsense, and I'll make sure this whole town knows what you're doing." The customers shifted uncomfortably. Some looked at me with sympathy, others with curiosity. But I knew exactly what Karen wanted: an audience. I leaned forward, keeping my voice calm but firm. "If you have a complaint, you're free to file it with the Price Control Authority. But don't stand here accusing me of theft in front of my customers." Her face reddened, and I swear I saw a vein twitch at her temple. "Oh, I will file a complaint," she hissed, "and I'll do more than that. People like you think you own this place. Well, watch what happens when someone with real class shows you how it's done." With that, she slammed the packet of sugar onto the counter and stormed out, leaving a hush in her wake. I shrugged it off. Karen was all noise, I thought. Just another HOA tyrant, used to barking orders at her neighbors. But I underestimated her obsession with proving me wrong. 2 weeks later, the empty building across the street, which had been sitting vacant for years, suddenly had bright new paint, a big banner reading, "Grand opening soon, Karen's Market," and construction crews hustling in and out. When I saw her inspecting the place, hands on her hips like a queen surveying her kingdom, I realized what she'd done. She'd bought the damn store. "She's really opening a general store?" my friend asked, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Looks like it," I muttered. "All because of that stupid argument." "She's crazy. No experience, no suppliers, no clue. She'll bleed money." "Maybe, but people like her don't care about bleeding. They care about winning." When the day came, Karen threw the kind of grand opening that would make a mayor jealous. Balloons, free coffee, and flyers boasting honest prices, no scams. She even hired a local radio station to broadcast live from her storefront, talking about how her shop would bring fairness back to the community. For a moment, she pulled it off. Curious residents wandered into her shiny new store, tempted by her promises and lured by the spectacle. But I stood by my window across the street, watching the flow of people. Some even waved at me apologetically, like they were betraying me just by stepping inside. But I wasn't worried. I'd been in this business long enough to know how it worked. Suppliers weren't kind to rookies, especially not to arrogant ones who thought they could waltz in and demand the best prices. Sure enough, within a month, Karen's cheerful banners started to fade, and her honest prices quietly crept upward. Customers began trickling back to me, complaining. "She's charging double for flour," one woman told me. "She tried to sell me expired milk," another whispered. "She says it's because wholesalers charge her more, but isn't she supposed to know how to run a store?" Malik laughed. Karen, of course, wouldn't admit her failure. She doubled down, telling anyone who'd listen that her prices were adjusted for inflation and that my store was deceiving people with low-quality goods. The hypocrisy burned me. She had accused me of overcharging, dragged my name through the dirt, and now she was doing exactly what she claimed to hate: Worse, she was doing it blatantly. That's when the idea came to me. Late one evening, I sat at my desk with the latest receipts and the official price list from the Price Control Authority. Karen's numbers not only exceeded the rates, they mocked them. Her greed was written in bold on every shelf. I gathered the documents, photos of her price boards, and customer statements. When I walked into the authority's office, I felt a strange calm. The inspector, a grizzled man with sharp eyes, flipped through my file. This is solid. If half of this is true, she's in trouble. Oh, it's true, I said, my voice steady. She wanted to prove I was a fraud. Instead, she proved herself one. The inspection happened a week later. I didn't even need to watch. I heard about it from customers who rushed into my store, half amused, half shocked. They stormed in like a raid, one man said. Checked every shelf, scanned every price. She tried to argue, but the inspector shut her down, said she was violating price control laws. And then the moment I'd been waiting for. Bright yellow seals slapped across Karen's front doors. Her grand Karen's Market, the pride of her spite, was officially closed by order of the Price Control Authority. I stood outside my shop, arms folded, watching as she screamed at the officers, her face twisted with rage and humiliation. Her voice echoed down the street, a mix of denial and desperation. "You can't do this! This is harassment! I'm the victim here! He's the one you should be investigating!" She pointed at me, her finger trembling. The inspector barely glanced my way before replying, "We already did. His prices are compliant. Yours are not. This store stays sealed until further notice." Karen's voice cracked as neighbors gathered, whispering, smirking, some even filming her meltdown. The queen of HOA had fallen, and she'd done it to herself. I walked back inside my shop, the bell above the door chiming softly as if celebrating. For the first time in weeks, I felt peace. But deep down, I knew Karen wasn't done. People like her never admit defeat. They scheme, they twist, they plot. And something told me this war wasn't over. It had only just begun. I thought the sealing of her store would be the end of it, a clean victory where her arrogance had written her downfall. But if there was one thing I had underestimated about Karen, it was the depth of her obsession. Defeat didn't humble her. It twisted her even further. For a few days, the town was alive with gossip. Customers at my counter spoke in hushed tones about how she screamed at the inspectors, how she tried to bribe them, how she even threatened to sue the authority. Some neighbors laughed, others shook their heads, but nearly everyone agreed on one thing. She had brought it upon herself. But Karen didn't disappear quietly. She lingered. I saw her car parked across the street some nights, headlights off, just sitting there like a vulture waiting for movement. Sometimes as I closed my shutters, I caught her staring from inside, her eyes burning through the glass. "Be careful," Malik warned me one evening. "A woman like her doesn't forget humiliation. She'll come back swinging." He was right. The first blow came through whispers. Suddenly rumors began to circulate that I had bribed the inspectors to shut her down, that I had sabotaged her supply chains by warning wholesalers against dealing with her, that my success wasn't from honesty but from dirty tricks. At first, I ignored it. The people who knew me, who'd shopped at my store for years, didn't believe it. But lies have a way of sticking, like smoke that clings to your clothes even after the fire is gone. Some customers began asking uncomfortable questions. A few even stopped coming. Then, one night, I woke to the sound of glass shattering. I rushed downstairs and found one of my display windows smashed, shards gluing under the moonlight. Nothing was stolen. It wasn't a robbery. It was a message. I didn't see who did it, but I knew. The next morning, Karen stood across the street, arms folded, a smug smile tugging at her lips as she watched me sweep the glass. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. That was when I realized this wasn't just a petty rivalry anymore. This was war. I tightened my security, installed cameras, even spoke to the local police, but evidence was hard to pin on her. She was careful, too careful. She'd learned from her mistakes. If I wanted to end this, I needed to be smarter, sharper, and hit her where it hurt most, her pride and her pocket. I began to dig, not into her store, it was already dead, but into Karen herself. The HOA queen wasn't just playing shopkeeper. She had her claws sunk deep into community politics. She thrived on control, on dictating how people painted their fences or where they parked their cars, and she had made enemies, plenty of them. I began to listen, at the barber shop, at the diner, even among my customers. The stories flowed. She had fined one neighbor for leaving holiday lights up too long. She had threatened to tow another's car for being too close to her driveway. She had even reported an elderly woman for keeping chickens in her backyard. The deeper I went, the clearer it became. Karen ruled through fear. But fear only lasts until someone shows the cracks in the tyrant's armor. I gathered testimonies, complaints, and even photographs. One neighbor had caught her on camera trespassing, measuring lawns with a tape like some deranged inspector. Another had emails where she threatened legal action over unauthorized garden gnomes. Piece by piece, I built a dossier. Then I waited. The moment came during the HOA's annual community meeting. Karen, as always, strutted to the podium, her voice sharp as she lectured residents about compliance, fees, and maintaining the dignity of the neighborhood. She thought she was untouchable, the queen on her throne. That's when I stood up, calm, deliberate, carrying the folder that had become my weapon. "Excuse me," I said, my voice cutting through the hall. "I think the community deserves to know how its leader has been operating." The room fell silent. Karen's eyes narrowed. "Sit down. You're not a member of this HOA. You have no standing here." "Maybe not, but I have evidence. Evidence of harassment, misuse of authority, and violations of the very rules you claim to uphold." Gasps rippled through the crowd as I began to read. Emails, complaints, photographs. Each revelation struck like a hammer. Every smug word she'd thrown at me, every accusation now boomeranged back in front of her subjects. Karen's face drained of color. She tried to interrupt, shouting that it was lies, fabrications, conspiracies. But the more she yelled, the more she looked unhinged. Neighbors who once cowered before her now whispered, shook their heads, even laughed. By the time I finished, the room was no longer hers. The board voted that night. Karen was stripped of her HOA presidency. Her authority, her power, was gone. She stormed out, humiliated, her heels clacking like gunshots. I watched her go, knowing this was the blow she couldn't recover from. In the weeks that followed, Karen's presence dwindled. Her sealed store remained a monument to her pride, gathering dust and cobwebs. Without her HOA crown, she had no stage, no audience. Neighbors she once ruled avoided her. Some even mocked her openly. I still saw her occasionally, at the grocery store, at the gas station, her once fierce glare now dulled with bitterness. She never spoke to me again. But I didn't need her words. I already had the victory. My store thrived, busier than ever. Customers who once wavered returned with loyalty stronger than before. The smashed window was replaced, the shelves restocked, and the bell over my door chiming merrily as if announcing every small triumph.
Sometimes, standing at my counter, I'd glance across the street at her abandoned shop, and I'd remember the day she walked into mine, accusing me of overcharging, trying to drag me down with her arrogance. She had wanted to prove she was better. Instead, she proved she was nothing. And in the end, all I had to do was let her pride destroy her.